I may share this because I do know Jules is on the line, and she won't mind me saying this. She sent a question in before. Jules is a good friend of mine and a lady that I worked with while I was over in the Middle East, and she sent a question in, and I know she is a lady who lives in line with her passion and her values, saying that she's got a big birthday coming up, but I won't tell you which one, and it's a great opportunity just to check in and look at what it is that is important to her in her life and her values. It's always good to check in, and I think particularly as different events happen in our life and we go through different stages of our lives, then circumstances can change, and what might have been our priority at one time may be different now. So I invite you all to be open. So what are our values then? Our values are those things in life that are most important to us. They are our driving force, and they are moving us either forward or not, as the case may be, whether we are consciously aware of it or not. So it's time to get consciously aware. So why is it important that we know what our values are? Because once we know them, we are able to make better, more informed and effective decisions. So if you know what your values are, you can, when you're coming to make a big decision, it might be a career decision or you're feeling stuck. And if you know, for example, that maybe freedom is important to you, or that security is important, or adventure is important, and you need to make a decision, depending on the priority order of your values, it makes it a lot easier to make those decisions. And you'll see that as I give you some examples as we go through. Your relationships, what it does for your relationships, first of all with yourself, because that's the most important one, although a lot of people tend to neglect that one, and that is something that I really want to cover in more detail as we go through, as to what times we give away our personal power and don't necessarily look at ourselves first. That can have a massive impact on our self-worth. And once we work on our own relationship with ourselves and know what's important to us, it then enables us to really, really understand the difference between ourselves and others and what makes others tick, so that we can ask accordingly. Sorry, I'm just getting swayed here by the questions. It's hi Ron, hi Joe. I've got a few questions coming in, so I'll deal with some more of those later. So I think this was really evident the last Values Discovery Day that we ran on the 9th of March. We had a group that I don't think any people in the group had values around discipline or order or responsibility, and it became quite fun. You know, we were sort of waiting for people coming back from breaks, and then we kind of cottoned on, and as we were working with the group on discovering their values, that we seemed to have a group of people who love to be free and carefree and have fun. So we sort of had to highlight that. And once you're actually aware of some of the things that are happening or not happening, we can make conscious decisions to work with it, because just by very nature of our values, we will automatically live in line with our highest values very easily, and some of the ones are a little bit lower down we have to do more work with. Our values help us resolve conflict, and they help us to collaborate. So if in doubt, get your values out. And particularly if you're working with other people, you're in a relationship, you know, look at the values, because normally when conflict occurs, a value has been triggered in some way. And we'll talk more about triggers later. In fact, I've got some sort of really juicy information and techniques as to how you can deal with triggers. And what do I mean by triggers? That was one of the questions that I was asked before the webinar from Michael. So what I mean by triggers is when something triggers our value. For example, I've got a really high value of truth. And if I found out somebody's been deceitful or somebody's told me a lie, then that really triggers my values. So I hope that helps the explanation, and we'll cover more on that later. It also helps us collaborate, because if I want to go into a joint venture or collaborate with somebody, you know, I want to find out what their values are, what's important to them, and work with somebody that shares the same values or similar, because no one person has the same values. We are all unique. And our values are the key to vision and goal achievement. So they're the foundation. And a lot of people start the other way around. They will set goals and say, this is what I want to achieve, or I want to become finance director in a company, or I want to start my own business, or I want to invest in stocks and shares or property, without really taking the time, first of all, to look at what's important to them. And then people wonder why they don't achieve their goals. And it's often because they haven't built them on a solid foundation. And your values are that solid foundation. So what we're going to focus on tonight then, I've picked 3 key areas that are relevant to majority of people's lives, and they are health, career and relationships. Now, there are many other areas in your life. There might be personal growth, finances, your spirituality, your recreation, whatever it might be for you. The techniques that I'm going to share with you are relevant in all areas of your life. But hopefully you'll agree that I have picked 3 areas that at least one of them would be relevant for you. So I hope that's the case. And we'll also be looking, within that as to how, what stops us living in line with them, and then how we can really turn that around and live in line with our values accordingly. So just a reminder for some people who've attended the Discovery Days, and just an introduction for people that either haven't, or this is a new topic to them. What we cover is, what are your values and why do we have them? And I've just done an abridged version of that, and how do they impact us in our life? And one of the first things that's really important is to elicit what our values are. And because of the nature of the time we've got tonight, I'm not going to go into that in a lot of detail, but just to give you some quick hints on that process, it's what is important to you in your life, what is it you enjoy, and what does that give you? So for example, what do I enjoy? I enjoy skiing. What does skiing give me? It gives me fun, it gives me freedom, it gives me connection because I like to do it with other people. So, and they are some of my values. And that's one of the reasons as well, connections are a really high value of mine, that we've got people in from all over the world, which is fantastic. So thanks all of you for helping me meet my value tonight. I wish you were here with me in my room as well. And then the priority order and rules. For those of you that have done some work around this, you will see the real importance of the priority order, because when we know what it is that is higher up in our hierarchy of values, that is what we will default into every day of the week, just by intuition, or just by being inspired, or just by default. And the values that are lower down on our list, they're still important, but they're lower down. We either have to motivate ourselves or ask somebody else to create that space for us to be motivated, or hold us to account. For example, like a coach. And then within that are the rules that we run around our values. And the rules that we have, most of the time, these are unconscious. And we don't know what they are until, and we'll use that word again, until we're triggered. And if something triggers us, then we've generally got a rule that may not be serving us. And I mentioned earlier that values are the key to goal alignment. So knowing your values first and then setting your goals accordingly is definitely the way to go. You may have heard about the guy who climbs the ladder of success only to find out it's leaning against the wrong wall. And this is a story that Stephen Covey shares in his 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Somebody who's climbed the career ladder and then got to the top and then thought, actually, why am I here? What am I doing? And it may have been somebody else's dream, or something that he thought or she thought that is something that would be good to do. So, I really encourage you, for those of you, who've got children or are still children at heart or on the phone, is that, you really do take the time to ask the questions, what's important and what do you enjoy? Now, normally I would do that over 2 1-hour sessions and let life happen in between, because it's when life happens you start to see what your true values are and where you feel alive and in flow, or where it is that you might be triggered. For those of you that haven't done a Values Discovery Day, I've just popped the website up there. You might want to go and have a look at that after the webinar. It's www.valuesdiscovery.com. I run those days once a month in London or Birmingham, and hopefully coming out to the Middle East soon, and maybe Australia at some point. But you can go and check those out. They're £297 for a one-day event. So what's happened since the Values Discovery Day? And again, if you've not been on it, absolutely, don't worry. This will help you to start opening up as well to where you are on your values journey. And I think it's important to look at, or what I would say to you, for those of you that I know have looked at your values quite a while ago, is to look what's happened since you first discovered them. Because when life starts to happen, that's when we know if we're being true to ourselves or not. So a lot of people are surprised at the outcome of what their values truly are, and it's not what they expected. I think I speak to quite a lot of groups, and normally I find I've got about 3 or 4 people out of a group of, let's say, an average of 70 to 100 that actually know what their values are, let alone the priority order. And because they are our guiding force, they're happening unconsciously, whether we're aware of it or not. And sometimes what we think is important isn't what actually turns out to be important. So, for example, when you start asking people questions in all aspects of their life, and I was working with one lady, and I sort of said, what's important to you about your relationship with your daughter? And she said, oh, safety. She said, I've never thought of that before. I absolutely didn't realize that. And then what happened was, when we went through her priority order, that turned out to be her number 1 value. And she looked at all areas of her life that she realized unconsciously she'd been driven by wanting to be safe. And in some areas it was helping her, and in some areas it was blocking her. But once we got the awareness out, we could look at that. And talking of awareness of what is happening when your core values are triggered. And I'm going to be sharing just before the end of this webinar some real techniques on what to do when your values are triggered, because that happens, life happens, and that's when we get that restless feeling, or that feeling of frustration, and or that discomfort inside, and we don't know what it is. Can I just ask you to put your hands up if you've ever had that feeling? Anybody ever felt restless or frustrated and not really known what's going on inside? Oh, a few of you going there. Yeah, Simon, Susan, Lee, thank you. Yes, there's quite a few hands going up there. I think most of us have actually had that feeling. Beginning to understand other people much better. I think one of the real key awarenesses that I see with people is that we all look at life through our own filters, and we expect other people to match our filters, and they don't, because they've got their own set of values. For example, my top values are energy, truth, love, connection, and freedom. And until I was aware of this, I just couldn't get people that were driven by other things, maybe such as achievement or recognition, or the need for adventure or security. And it's just, these things aren't as high in my priorities as they may be in some others. And it's being able to step into other people's shoes. And once we're able to do that and understand people much better, the communication comes. And I think that's one of the biggest awarenesses, is we all have different values, or even if we have similar values, what they mean to us are completely different things. We all attach different meanings to our words based on the experiences we've had in our life. It's a start on the journey of putting yourself first. And I think this is, again, a big eye-opener, that whatever our values are, that we tend to automatically give to other people first. But the real key is it starts with you, and I'll be going through some examples on that later. And I'll also be sharing with you some examples of people that have shared their stories as well. Gives you more clarity on why you do what you do. When we sort of see our values, and particularly the priority order, we can start to understand, that's why I do that. We discover what our values are, and, okay, that's why I'm really drawn all the time to creative pursuits. I didn't realize that creativity, inspiration, and freedom were that high up on my values, and now I can see it in black and white. It makes perfect sense. And the power of the priority order, which I've mentioned there. And again, I'm going to get into some examples. And more things cropping up that could be values. Because with the best will in the world, what we can cover in an hour or on a discovery day is really the start of this amazing journey. And as life happens, as it does, we start to realize more and more things that are either important, or we start to see the things that would be frustrating us. So you've already started to unlock the treasure inside. So this is the start of that journey. I was showing this to my partner earlier, and he did actually notice that they were chocolate coins in there. So what's deeper down, who knows? So started this amazing journey of discovery. And I'd just like to share a story with you about Sean. Sean is the handsome guy on the left, and that's his son Ben there on the right. Some of you may know Ben Lepier. Ben is an amazing guy. Ben runs his own personal development programs under the theme of Warrior Masters. And that's his dad. And I was speaking at an event in Bristol that Ben was hosting, and his dad was sat at the back. I didn't know it was his dad. And he said, "Joe, I'd really love to come and do your discovery day, but I don't think it's for me. I've not got any direction in life." And I said, "Sean, it's exactly for you. When people are stuck and don't know which direction to take, it's because very often they don't know what's important to them to start building a direction upon." So Ben brought his dad along to the Values Discovery Day, and I'd just like to share what happened within the space of 4 weeks. So Sean came along, had no direction, but he was harbouring a dream. Came on the Values Discovery Day and uncovered this dream to a lot deeper level, and the group that were in the room was super supportive of him. And once he just started to discover what his values were and what was important to him, it came out how much he loved golf. And he said, "I would love to be a golf coach, but I'm not qualified." So, there's a belief popped up there that, he had to be qualified to become a golf coach. So we worked through that. Within 4 weeks, Sean sent me an email to say that he was teaching at his local pitch and putt, and he is now working as a golf coach. And the email he sent was living the dream. So this is just to show you how powerful your values are, because it can get that much shift in a short period of time. And Sean wanted me to extend his thanks to Ben, his amazing son you can see on the picture there, and myself and all the group. So thanks, Sean, for sharing that, because it's a great example of what happens when you do discover what your values are, and you can move from not having any direction to within 4 weeks living the dream, as you say. So well done for that. So our focus on our health, our career, and our relationships. Where shall we start? I'm going to start with health. And what I've decided to do here, I've decided to share a case study of somebody's priority order, and just to highlight what the impact of this priority order is, and the impact that this potentially could have on this gentleman's health. This is somebody who has a number one value of adventure. So that's great. A number two value of freedom, integrity, achievement, and health and energy. Now, what if I was to tell you that this gentleman's goal was to climb Kilimanjaro? And I know there's some mountain climbers on this call, Jules and Darren. I know there's some mountain climbers there. What would you say if there's somebody who's driven by adventure, freedom, integrity, and achievement higher than health and energy. Now, I'm not here to judge anybody's values because they're all our values and they all mean different things. This could present a challenge because I've not climbed Kilimanjaro myself, but for those of you that have, please feel free to comment. It's I would probably presume that your health and energy needs to be fairly high up in there, that you've got to be super fit to go and do these things. So I'm just highlighting the order of the values is key here, because if somebody's striving for adventure and achievement at the expense of health and energy, that could make a difference. And I know all too well the impact of priority order on health. I shared with you my top 5 values, and I'm very clear on what they are now. They are energy, truth, love, connection, and then freedom. But freedom used to drive me at all costs, and it did have a real impact on my health. I took a job as a global training manager about 12 years ago now. And I took the job because it was enabling me to travel the world. I was on and off planes when I was back in the UK. I didn't see hardly any friends or family, and I was always feeling ill because I was shattered all the time. So then when I discovered my values, which I know some of you have already heard that story, I had a real light bulb moment that I'd realized that I was actually activating my number 5 value of freedom at the expense of the ones above it. Because at the time I was working for a company that I was training software that was cutting edge when I started, and then over the years went by, a couple of years went by, the software was not so cutting edge, and I was having to stand up in front of people and say, well, don't worry, it will work when it's live. My health and energy value was flagging, and energy is my number 1 value. My love value, I wasn't seeing the people that were important to me because I was always traveling, and a relationship was non-existent. And connection, I was having some connection with clients, but again, not the people that were really important to me. So I know all too well how the impact of this order affects your values. So and it's not something you can do sort of going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which is in order. We go through a very unconscious process to put these values in order. So just be aware of that. And I want to go a bit deeper into what I call the values triangle. So some of you might have seen this before, and if you haven't, then absolutely be open to what I'm going to share now. And if you have seen me talk about this before, I'm going to give you a slightly different angle and deeper meaning to this. So your values triangle. So let's put a value in the middle. This may or may not be your value. I've put the word trust in there. And if this is one of your values, just to stretch you a bit further, I would say to you, what does it mean to you? Because it's really important to know the meaning. Because if I have a value of trust and you have a value of trust, and it means 2 completely different things, then there could be a conflict in the future. So it's really important to highlight that. So if you have a value of trust, you need to check in 3 different areas. What you give to others. So if trust is important to you, do you trust others? And do others trust you? And is it important to you that others put their trust in you? Now, this area here is the one I want to go a bit deeper into. So when we are giving to others, we've got to be very aware that we may be doing it at our own expense, that we need to look after ourselves first. And when others give to you, if you have expectations that others need to trust you, you could be setting yourself up to fail, because we have no control on what other people do to us. And this is where our rules can pop up, because we then need to examine our rules. Because if I'm saying that everybody I deal with must put their trust in me, and then they don't, I'm going to be very, very upset. And I'm actually relying on other people to fulfill my values. Oh, I've just got a message through that saying that's great news about Sean from Julie, who was one of the ladies that worked with him on the course. So yeah, it's fantastic news, Julie. And the foundation at the bottom, and you'll notice that I've put this in big block capitals for a reason, is you to you. If we are not honouring that part of the triangle first, we are going to be giving away our personal power at expense to ourselves. And this is where it can also affect our self-worth, because people will constantly give whatever their values are to other people and then don't have time to give it to themselves. So one of the things I would say is that if you are triggered by anything, the first thing you need to do is look at what you give to you. It's the oxygen mask theory. And to just check in if you do have an expectation on what others give to you. And that's where we can go deeper into the rules, but not on this webinar. That's something that I will cover in more detail in either the Values Discovery Day or a 3-day retreat, which I'm running in June. So I'll tell you a little bit more about that later too. Let's just put one other word in the middle. Recognition. Any of you out there got a value or think that recognition is important to you? Just by show of hands. I won't say the names out because I appreciate that values are very important and very personal to each other. So, if you have got a value of recognition, just for example, then just pop your hand up. Okay. Quite a few of you, actually. There's about 7, 8, 9, 10 of you. Oh, I picked a good word then. This is what I call one of the be careful or the caution values. And there are several other words that could also easily go in that triangle. And again, this is one of the things that we'll cover in more detail when we do a 3-day retreat. But if you have a value of recognition, and I'm purposely putting up the others to you first, is you need to be very aware, does that value have a reliance on what other people give you? Because if it does, then that is going to be a big cause of frustration. You will be relying on other people to help you to be fulfilled. So I'm just challenging that. Other words such as achievement, and there's about 5 or 6 more, that absolutely it can be your value. I'm not challenging your values here, but I'm challenging you how you meet that. Just make sure you're not reliant on other people to meet that value, and look at what you give to others. But first and foremost, if you have that as a value, I think there's about 12, 13 of you on now that's got that as a value. Please look at what you are giving to you, because the most important piece is you recognizing yourself. And then what you give to others. So if that's important to you, how do you recognize others? And then guess how number 3 happens, others to you. It happens by magic. If you're giving to yourself first, then to others, that one naturally happens. We don't need to expect it. So whatever your values are, you can put the words in the triangle, but make sure that you've met all 3 areas in meeting that value. Let's go on and just want to give a case study here, because case studies are a great way to actually show how values work. And I also invite you at the same time to see what resonates with you. This is just a quick story about Paul. And Paul is a guy that I've worked with over the last year. And I started coaching him last February. And he was in a very senior role in HR within a company. I started to coach him on his objectives and what he wanted to achieve for the year. And my first step whenever I coach anybody is to find out their values. Over the first 2 sessions, I work on values. And we'd started to elicit Paul's values, and he got made redundant. Just by show of hands, anybody on the call ever been made redundant or made themselves redundant, which is what I did when I discovered my values? Okay, thank you for sharing. Yeah, a few of you there. It can be quite scary. In some ways, it can be a relief. It can be scary. And when it happens to us rather than of our choice, it throws up all sorts of emotions in different ways. And Paul went through quite a bit of emotions, but one thing he was grateful for, that we had actually started working on his values, because he'd already started to look at what was important to him. So we worked on his values. He was made redundant in April 2011, started the coaching with the values. And I got him to set his intention for what would be his ideal job and location. And he lives in Leicestershire, which is in the Midlands in England, for those of you not familiar. And he said, well, he's in his mid-50s. He said, Joe, really at my age, I'm going to have to go for a job of my seniority in London. And I said, okay, that's as well maybe, but let's just say, what if it was your ideal job? He said, well, it'd be right near my home, and I'd love a director role and, a few more things around that. So I said, okay. So we went on a bit of a journey over the next few months, and what we were finding, that Paul was actually turning down jobs. He said, this is really scary, yet I'm making conscious choices to say no, as these are not in line with my values. And he was offered some amazing jobs. And now, don't get me wrong here, he didn't do this easily. All the sort of, what am I doing? I'm turning down this role. But it didn't meet his criteria and it didn't meet his values. And what was amazing is, because he stayed true to who he was and lived in line with his values, he got his ideal job, his ideal location, and he started on his ideal date. In April, he'd said to me, I'd love to start on the 1st of November and it would be near my house. He got a job 12 miles from home, at a higher level than he was at before, at HR, very senior HR director level, and he started, wasn't quite the 1st of November, I think it was around about the 10th or 11th. So, it's pretty near. That is just a real powerful story of what happens when you live in line with your values. So, just look at any big decisions that you have to make, because being made redundant and choosing a new job are big decisions, but you can apply the same in your own life when you've got decisions to make. If you know what your values are, then absolutely live in line of them. And I know I've got Lee on the line. I know Paul's at a meeting tonight, but I just wanted to share around relationships as well. Paul and Lee have been together, you can see there, for 34 years. They've been married for 25 of those. And they came on the Values Discovery Day in March. And what was really powerful to see is that we did an exercise. I'm not going to reveal too much of it, but it was an exercise which we called My Land. And it's a very unconscious visualization process that starts to elicit the things that are important to you. And what Paul and Lee shared with me is what a revelation it was that we've been together, an item, for 34 years, and we didn't really know where each other lived. So more work to do and more exploratory. And Paul is actually a very, very good coach. And he said to me, what was really enlightening for him is that he's always looked at it, he's always been taught in a more cerebral, conscious way, but to look at it in a more unconscious way, then it was so, so powerful. And, Lee and Paul came from a very good place. They were just looking at how they could go deeper into what was important to them. So, however long you've been together, how well do you really know the other person? Just got a question in from Neil saying, does it always go in that order? Neil, could I just ask you to expand on what you mean by the order, and I'll be happy to answer that question. Which specific area, because I'm not sure when the question came in. So be delighted to answer that. So just while we're on the subject of relationships, for those of you that are in relationships, whether it be personal or it might be a business relationship, ask yourself, what is important to the other person? And how can I help them meet that value? Because don't we want the other people in our life to be happy? But again, you need to know yourself first. It always starts with you. Now, Paul and Lee are in a very good relationship. Also had people that discovered their values. That I had one guy who came up to me and he said, Joe, I just came on this course to see what it was all about. I think you've helped me save my marriage. He said, I've realized that I've been looking for my wife to inspire me when really what's most important is love. And really, really is powerful to look at these areas with your partners. Because once you are more self-aware, it's really important that your partner, one, understands themselves and understands you, and vice versa. And guys, you know, all you need to do really is get to understand your women and just meet their values, and it will all be perfect for you. I'll probably get slapped now. I think my partner's on the phone as well. I'm my dad, so. So what is it that's hidden below? You know, we've got an hour here tonight. We're starting to look at the surface. Some of you have already started to discover that there's more and more on this subject that is so, so powerful. That we have rules. Are our rules healthy or unhealthy? We have human needs. Sometimes we sabotage our values because our needs are greater. You know, as human beings, we have needs of belonging, of safety, of security, of connection with other people. And if our values are rocked, it may be that our human needs are taking over. Meanings, interpretations, and relating to other. I think I've touched on that our values are like our fingerprints, and what my values mean to me, even if some of you out there think you share the same values as me, I'll guarantee you that when we start going deeper, that they will have different meanings and interpretations. So it's really important not to make assumptions. There's a key question that some of you will know that I always ask to people is, what does that mean to you? That is one of the most powerful questions that you can ask. Surfacing your life purpose and vision. Whatever your top values are an absolute key to your life purpose, and your vision can be built from that, because your top values are the ones that you instinctively go to, that you'll do without even thinking. You may not know what they are yet, but they are what are absolutely driving your life, and they are the key to building your life purpose. So for those of you really searching, you know, what is my purpose? Why am I here? What am I doing? As a lot of us sort of tend to do, maybe when we get to a certain age. I think some people call it a midlife crisis. I prefer to call it a soul awakening. Or, you know, if you're asking the questions, there must be more to life than this. They're the key to your identity. So you can really go deeper on this, because your values start to become the key to your identity, your personality. They're the foundation piece for that. They help you to set your boundaries. What do you say yes to? What do you say no to? Is it in line with my values? Am I living myself in line with my values? Because we can screw ourselves up and cause conflict within our own values as well. We might have freedom might be important and security might be important, but how do we mesh the two together? What do we do if push comes to shove? Do we take one over the other? And they're also the link to your belief system. So quite a few of you have asked me, what can we do if we want to take this further? And one of the reasons I put this webinar on was where people were sort of saying, Jo, this is great. Once we start discovering, we realise there's more and more and more to this. I know Linda asked me before the call that she's got quite a few values. How can she amalgamate them? You know, I think without looking at your values, Linda, I'm happy to have a chat with you about that. I can help you with that. It may or may not be that they need to be amalgamated. It's what it means to you. If you think that there are similar words that can link together, then by all means do that. But happy to have a chat with you about that, because I think that's probably quite personal. So what I'd just like to do is just take a few minutes to talk to you about the Values Powered Life Retreat. Now, I mentioned this at the last Discovery Day that I ran, and I've put this on based on your requests. So I'm running a 3-day event at the end of June in Warwickshire. It's the 28th, 29th and 30th of June. So for those of you overseas, UK is much nicer weather, hopefully, than the Middle East at that time of year. So we'd love to have you with us. So let me tell you a bit more about what we will cover in that retreat, so that you can see how it's possible to go a lot deeper with your values. So deeper clarity on who you are and why you do what you do, and go deeper into your identity. To make your relationships effortless and easier. What we're going to do on that retreat is you are actually going to live your values for the 3 days. So it's not that you come into the retreat and you go out with a plan and that you have to put things into place. You will live and manifest that plan while you are actually in there. And we'll go through a lot of the deeper stuff that's hidden below the surface. So really engage your life vision and goals and your purpose. Set boundaries. And again, we don't always know what our boundaries are until we start uncovering our rules and what lies beneath. So a real true experience of living out all your values. We'll have exercises, hopefully quite a few of them outside as well, that get you to live out your values with your interactions with other people and through the work that we're going to do, so that you actually have that shift while you are in there, so that you can, because I think one of the challenges, one of the things that stops people living in line with their values is the consistency and embedding new habits. We want to help you embed those while you're at the retreat. How to recognize your danger values. I've alluded to one or two earlier with recognition, but just to be aware of some values that may not serve you and that you might need to look at in more detail. How to draw on your power values. And, in cases of emergency, is know what your power values are. Know which the ones that can get you out of this situation, that situation, and then another situation, as to whatever that might be. And your power values also help you to create your life purpose. Blast out your unconscious rules, so the ones that you don't even know about yet, and your limiting beliefs once and for all. So we really, really want you to go out so clear and aligned to who you truly are, so that you can act that way in real life, because that's always the challenge, isn't it, when life happens. So what's included? It's a 3-day retreat. It's a wonderful countryside hotel, has leisure facilities as well, and all your accommodation and food is included. And I've done that because I think it's really important when you are going through a process where you're immersed in change and transformation, is that you actually stay and work through that together as a group. You will get a really practical workbook that will contain your essential way of being, for who you truly are and living the life of your choice. And it's a very powerful place to be when you are at choice and you are not allowing life to happen to you. And again, the work we do in there, you will go out with the workbook that contains everything you need that is relevant to you. Not just general information. There will be some of that in there, but you will make it your own and it will become the way you live your life. There'll be a private support group that I'll be run for retreat attendees only. We will also send some downloadable worksheets so we can really get to know who you are and what it is that's driving you before we attend. And I'm using the word we, and you're thinking, who's we? So the lovely Helena Holrick, who is on the call as well, will be supporting me throughout that retreat. And for those of you that have been on Discovery Day, you will have met that wonderful lady. And if you book by the 31st of March, you'll get a one-to-one hours session, private values consultation with me. So I will really help you shape your values, and it'll be personal to you, so that we get your values honed so that you know exactly what they are before you come to the retreat. The price for this workshop until the 31st of March is £897. Now, that is an amazing price, bearing in mind everything that is included. The price will be going up on the 1st of April to £997, but I'm going to run it at £897 for anybody that books at the 31st of March. And yes, Vikas, you've asked me if you can pay in instalments. Yes, absolutely. You can pay in instalments. And I'll come on to that in a moment. But for those of you that are in a relationship, I would strongly recommend that you bring your life partner. And I'm offering that at a lower rate, because I think if you're going to do this work on yourself, it's really important that your partner discovers who they are as well, what's important to them, so that you can align that together within your relationship. So you can bring your partner for £600. There is a condition to that, though. You have to share a room and a double bed. We've managed to get some amazing deals on the double room, so which is what we wanted, because we want to encourage people to bring their partners. So you have to share a room together. And the link for that is www.valuespoweredliving.eventbrite.co.uk, and I will be showing that on a slide at the end as well. So the deposit payable is £297 for individuals, or £597, and that should say for couples on the end. I've missed that bit off. So if you're an individual and you want to come, it's £297 deposit payable by the 31st of March, and then what we'll do is we will take payments of approximately £200 a month up until June. We will work that out with you once you've paid. Or for couples, as I say, it's £597. So that's what is involved in the retreat, and as I say, that's something we've put on as a response to you all being so eager and realising that there's so much more to this really powerful subject. My life just changed dramatically as soon as I found out what my values were. So that's the retreat, and that's at the end of June. So I promised I would deal with some of your triggers, and some great questions coming here. Thank you, Joe. Love this recap. It's all very powerful, and the work I did on Discovery Day is already making a positive impact on my life and focus. That's great to hear, Linda. So what is it that triggers? What is it that triggers you and really, really gets you to either tear your hair out or to feel restless or frustrated? Have a think about that for a moment, and please feel free to share if anything pops out. Is it other people? Is it what other people do? Is it the expectations that we have of others? One of the things that really triggers me is, as I mentioned before, if somebody tells me an untruth and I found out about that later, then, I'm really triggered and emotional. Let me give you some tips on what to do about that. I don't want to leave you in a triggered state. So when we are triggered, it is generally that somebody has challenged that which is most important to us, i.e. our values. And the first step I would encourage you to take is to look at what's being triggered and why. So which value is being triggered? And I think I've got some questions coming through in here. Okay, I've got lying from Helena, lateness, somebody else, lying. I love working with other people, but sometimes they have their own ideas, and we don't always get on. So thank you. So thank you for sharing all of those. So when you are triggered by these instances, the first thing to do is, first of all, notice what emotion is coming up, because allow the emotion. We don't want to suppress it, because the body has a funny way with dealing with suppressed emotions. It results in stress and it affects our health. So notice what emotion it is, and just kind of let that, just say, okay, I feel angry, I feel frustrated. That will immediately lessen the feeling by you acknowledging that state. And one of the things I do is I call it the helicopter approach. So I work to rise above the situation, and it doesn't always happen, but when I can step into it in that way, that's what I do. And then the next piece, that if that bit hasn't worked for me, is what value is being triggered here. Now, if I can highlight the value and understand it, I can deal with it. So it might be, okay, well, somebody's just triggered my value of truth here. So have I got an expectation or a rule that they must tell me the truth? Well, actually, Joe, you're not in control of that. You can't control what other people do. We can't control the way other people work or what they say. So that's where we may have a rule that's not serving us. So, we can sit there and then rationalize that and say, actually, this isn't serving me. When is a good time to let this go? So and also you'll be more triggered the higher up the priority order of value is. So if something really frustrates you, that is a really good way of finding out one of your top core values. Because if I say to you now, what really frustrates the hell out of you, what really makes you angry, whatever it is you say, somebody might say somebody being messy. The opposite of that might be order. So it might be, in my case, somebody lying. Quite a few of you have said lying. The opposite of that might be truth or honesty or integrity. Whatever word resonates with you, and then ask yourself, what does that mean? So think about what it is that triggers you. And I'll just take the time. Neil's expanded on his question. Thank you so much, Neil. Just wasn't sure which slide we were on when you asked the question. And Neil said, when I went through the triangle, you to you, then you to others, is that always the right order? And my answer is absolutely. If you want to really feel in your personal power and not let others be in control of your life, the first person you need to give that value to is you. So it's you to you first. And this also fits with what triggers you. Because if something's triggered your values, I would nearly almost guarantee that you need to look at what you're giving to yourself around that value. Because if we are strong in the fact of what we're giving to ourselves, in our personal power, then we won't be rocked as much. So, you know, I had a value recently challenged around love and connection. Something to do with a friend of mine who's not on this webinar, but we've sorted it out. And love and connection are very, very high up for me. And I said to myself, okay, what's going on here, Joe? Love and connection have been challenged. Where in my life do I need to give myself love and connection? And I'd been rushing around. I'd been, been busy with my business, and I hadn't taken time out for me. So what I did was I actually stepped into that space of taking time out for me. And I felt so much better. So always, always give to yourself first and then you to others, because we're not in control of that third one. And that's the one that happens by magic. Because when we have challenges and obstacles in our life, it's our body's way of showing us that we're not in line with our values. Because when we are completely in line with our values, our life flows. And that leads me on very nicely just to talk to you about Isabel, who's on the call. So hi, Isabel, and her husband, Michael, who both came to a Values Day in February. And Isabel's been, working on herself. She's a great lady, does great shiatsu massages if anybody's interested. And I think one of the things with self-development, all of it's right, but it's what clicks at the right time. And, Isabel shared and asked me to share that one of her friends sort of said to her that she seems much more comfortable in herself and happy to be here. Her friend's known her for 35 years. And Isabel said she realised that this was a very recent occurrence, and that's since she attended the Values Day in February. So life has finally started to move and feels more flowing. It's just what piece comes first. So thank you, Isabel, for sharing that, because when you do live and act in line with your values, extraordinary things are possible, magic happens, and life just works beautifully. So just to end then, I'll just see if there's a few more questions. If anybody wants to stay on the line for a few more minutes. I know we're at 8 o'clock and I realise it's midnight in Dubai, and some of you might want to go to bed. But the details there are for the Values Powered Life Retreat. And I haven't put the dates on there. I've just realised. I will send you all an email tomorrow. That will be the 28th, 29th and 30th of June, and that will take place in Warwickshire in the UK. And if anybody is interested in the Values Discovery Days, then you can see there that they're 20th of April in London, 11th of May in Birmingham. So there's a lot of things coming through that stress you out, negativity, stressed. My yoga teacher asked me to move from the back to the front of the room. I like being at the back. It's really interesting to note these things. And yay, thank you for answering the questions. So thank you all so much for your participation tonight. I hope you've got great value out of it. I'm sure you have. I just know the power of what it's like when you discover your values. And I'm just so passionate about this subject that my life purpose is to help people get in touch with who they truly are. So what I'll do is I'll send you a follow-up email tomorrow, and I'll include in it a document on how to make values-powered decisions for you, so that when you do come to making decisions, you've got a process that actually helps you get in line with your values. So if everybody's happy for me to send that out to them, I'll send you that document along with the dates for the retreat and the Values Days. So just let me know if any of those are of interest to you, and I'd be delighted to support you through this journey further. So thank you, Julie in Dubai. Great reminder on the value of values. And I hope you have an amazing birthday. I shall be in touch with you before that. Thanks, Joe. Great refresher. So thank you all. Enjoy the rest of your journey. and got there. See you soon on the next part of the journey. Live in line with your values and strive to do that every day, and let me know when the magic happens, and I look forward to seeing you soon. Thank you very much.